Again, welcome to our Legacy of Leaders presentation. I am Kent Stuckey, class of '79 and a shamelessly proud member of a 4-generation Otterbein family. I am honored to be the campaign chair for our big family, Otterbein University. I have been asked to give a plug for the Summer Breeze program coming June 26 to 28. It's going to be a lot of fun going back into the 70s. I know my older brother David, a 75 grad, is excited to be performing for the Ice Cream Social, so don't miss that either. He'll be playing American Pie, the full half hour. So today we will be discussing the state of higher education and how Otterbein can be sustainable and continue to thrive into the future. I want to provide some context for our discussions regarding the challenges faced by higher education today. We are going through the most disruptive period in modern times for higher education. And that disruption takes many forms, including economics, demographics, and technology, of course. Changes in technology include MOOCs, or massive open online courses, and other online programs that depart from traditional higher education and the necessity for a campus environment. Economically, in addition to cyclical downturns, we're seeing uneven recovery and flat median incomes, household incomes. In Ohio, in fact, the median income has gone down between 2010 and 2013. Tuition rate increases have outpaced inflation, and student and family behavior and other data indicate that this can't continue. Families are price sensitive, and now they're looking more at a business case for college as opposed to just assuming the value of that life experience. The economic impacts appear to be contributing to somewhat of a shift to the public universities. The percent of Ohio high school graduates choosing an Ohio independent college have gone down 2%, while those choosing public colleges have seen a 2% increase. Students from more affluent families are increasingly choosing public universities versus traditionally having gone to private ones. Some key demographics also indicate challenges. In Ohio, we've had the lowest number of high school grads in 10 years. And more generally in the Midwest and Northeast, this trend is going to continue for many years going forward. The Council of Independent Colleges data has 58% of Ohio schools reporting fall 2014 numbers enrolled fewer students than fall 2013. 73% missed their enrollment goals. 43% missed freshman enrollment goals and net tuition revenue goals for 2014. So, while this is a disruptive period for higher education, with disruption comes real opportunities. Otterbein, specifically, is doing very well and doing the right things and is positioned well for the future. We have a great story to tell. We need to tell it, and there is a great demand from students and employers alike for what we do. I recently heard a quote that captures our opportunity and does it well. Steve Jobs said, "It's in Apple's DNA that technology alone is not enough. It's technology married with liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields us the result that makes our hearts sing." As you may have read in some of our recent communications, every generation leaves a legacy, and now is our time. As I look around this room and at our panel, we are blessed with an extraordinary community and exceptional leadership. I'm going to introduce each of the members of the panel and will ask them to address key questions and relevant issues. First, I introduce our board chairman, Otterbein's board chairman, Mark Thresher. Mark graduated in 1978, despite what his name tag says. He met his wife, Deborah Scott, who was a 77 grad, and I think it was 76 that Mark and Deb, well, Deb and Mark, we're homecoming queen and king. Glad I got that in the right order. Thank you. Mark's daughter Chelsea graduated from Otterbein in 2006, and Mark is currently Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of Nationwide Insurance, one of the world's largest diversified insurance and financial services organizations. Mark, can you talk about the true cost of private education?
Sure, and first of all, thanks for everybody coming today, and hopefully we can have a conversation about some of these issues. And I think, Kent, probably behind your question a little bit, what's the true cost of a private education versus a public education? Because that's what we spend most time talking about. And I think you can answer that in a variety of different ways. First of all, it's not the sticker price. And so it's not the full price that we advertise as when you compare that to what Ohio State might charge, because you really need to understand the benefits of both merit aids and need-based aids and get it down to a net tuition cost. And it's interesting once you go through that process at a place like Otterbein, you get a lot more comparable and maybe cheaper in the long run. And so people get scared off by a $30,000 tuition price, but really that's I think we have maybe 2 students that paid it or something like that in all of the last couple of years. So it really does need to take full advantage of what your merit-based aids and need-based aids can get you. And I know that we've got calculators on the website. We've got places you can compare that, so you need to get it down to that. I think there's a couple other things, which is, at least here at Otterbein, and I think a number of our competitors in private education, when we talk about a 4-year education, we mean a 4-year education, an undergraduate degree, not 5 or 6 to get out. So you need to do a little bit more math there as to what does that add up to eventually in the total cost of graduating with a similar degree here versus some of the larger public institutions. And that's not a knock on those institutions. It's just huge, and getting classes assigned and getting people through the whole program is just more difficult at times to accomplish that. And I know one of our goals is to get people through in 4 years. I think the other side of that is I think I saw some stats. I think our average student loan at the end of 4 years is $20,000 to $25,000, which is still a lot of money, but it's probably not comparable in some cases if you've gone 5 or 6 years at another institution. So we really need to, we've spent a lot of time as a board talking about we're not increasing the top line tuition. That's nice, but it's really what else can we do with scholarships. It's a big part of what this campaign is about in order to raise money so we can provide more merit and need-based for students to come here. That's a big deal of it. And one side, like when you said business case, I have to give a personal story. So Deb and I agreed to fund 4 years of college for our 2 daughters, and as Ken said, Chelsea went here and graduated in 4 years, and she's a teacher here locally. My younger daughter negotiated 6 years out of me because she was going to make more money as a doctor of pharmacy. I was trying to figure out how that helped my business case. Exactly, but it helped hers a lot if she could go through the 6 years. So, and that's great. So, thanks.
I want to tap some other expertise in the room with Jefferson. What's the average debt for a graduate of a public university? I believe it's higher than.
Well, the average debt nationally for any university is just over $29,000. In Ohio, we see the same figure. Ohio is one of the more expensive states in the nation to attend college in. So when we look at our students that graduated in the spring of 2014, for example, across that graduating class, the mean debt of that class was $26,538. Now, almost a quarter, 24% of those students graduated with no debt at all, and 56% graduated with only the low-interest federal loans. So we really do believe that we are providing a pretty affordable education for students. I like to tell people the average price of a new car last year was $32,000, and that car depreciated the minute you drove it off the lot. So if you can get a 4-year education that appreciates, and your fiscal commitment when you leave as a student is less than the price of that car that we all know you want to go out and buy with your first job, I think you've got a pretty good value for your education.
Very good. There's another key factor in that equation, which is what happens after you graduate. And I know we've got tremendous statistics in terms of our graduates either being admitted into a graduate program that they desire to pursue, or getting a job in their field of study, not just any job. So, and those numbers are close to 90%, I think.
So we do a study, we've been doing it a year after graduation. They've moved it up to 6 months, and I don't think we have the data back yet for this year. But again, when you look at the study we did last summer, so that would be students that graduated in the spring of 2013, a year later, 94% of them were either employed or in graduate school or doing national service, things like Teach for America, those kinds of opportunities. So we do see very, very strong outcomes for our students. And that's, again, typical of smaller private institutions, have excellent placement rates in graduate medical schools, and students, because the faculty know them so well and all of the opportunities that we provide, when they leave here, they have that set of base knowledge and soft skills that employers are looking for when they're hiring. So our students do very well.
Wonderful.
And Ken,
Yes.
As a board, I think we've talked about that a lot, that that's maybe not a message people fully appreciate. It's something we need to advertise more about, talk about as we recruit students, that you're coming here not to go 4 years and have a degree and then go do something else totally. It's really to work in the field, as you said, or graduate school if that's what's necessary to complete your education. But I think more knowledge of that out there will help us recruit more and more students.
We do have a tremendous story to tell, including that we are, in fact, becoming more affordable relative to the public universities with the changes that are taking place. Does this raise questions for others in the room that you'd like to present, or do you have some thoughts you think would be valuable to share, your own thoughts?
I'll go ahead. Good morning, everyone. My name is Isilda Dickerson. I'm class of '88, and you had spoke earlier about the experiences between a public institution and a private institution. I had an opportunity to experience both sides of it. Started off my college undergrad career at Ohio State, the Ohio State University. But I will have to say that I had met someone that recognized that there was an opportunity for me to come over to Otterbein. And lo and behold, I did come to Otterbein, and I'm glad I did. That experience has stayed with me forever. But I was able to at least have an idea of the difference between that public institution setting and the private institution setting. And what I recognized was all that time I spent at that public institution, I would not have had to have so much trial and error if I had came to Otterbein initially. So by the time I got to Otterbein, I had learned a lot as far as trying to navigate all of the infrastructure of such a larger institution. And so that helped me to be able to now share that experience with other potential entering freshmen going into college, because now they can have someone who has been on both sides of it, and speaking from experience and not just looking at it from statistics on paper. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Well, if I can follow up on that, many of you know I was at Ohio State for both a student, but for 10 years in my professional career. One of our marketing messages was, this place is so complex. If you can get through here, you can go out and do anything that you want to do. Well, that appeals to a certain kind of student. It's not where the majority of high school graduates really are, and that's an important message for families to understand.
Okay, yes.
Well, I have two recent experiences. Not only did I graduate from here, but my daughter, Morgan, also graduated from here in 2012. And my son, we did not pressure them, either one of them, to come here or whatever, and my husband went to Ohio University. My son did come here to interview, and he considered this highly, but the one thing he didn't have was the 110, so he's a music major, and so he graduated from OU. But my daughter did come here, and I was going to say, when he came here, he could have come here for less money than at Ohio University because they were giving him more in scholarship money here. So it actually cost us more to send him to OU. Morgan graduated in 2012, and her experience was wonderful here. And she had no trouble at all getting into grad school. She wanted to be a librarian, so she had to get her master's in library science. So she went to, she chose Bloomington or Indiana University, but she applied at several places, and she, of course, was accepted at all of them. So she had her choice of where she wanted to go. And once she graduated from Indiana, then she was able to find a very good job, very high-paying job, I might add, in Iowa City, Iowa. So her experience here was very good. The career counseling was helpful. They helped her through the application process for grad school, and that was a very positive thing for us as a family because we didn't know any of that stuff. So.
That's what we love to hear.
Yeah.
Great. I have a question for Rebecca Prinzhorn. Becky was a 1978 grad. We started as freshmen together, but she just left me in the dust and graduated in 78. I believe you had political science major? While on campus, Becky was in EKT, Epsilon Kappa Tau, involved in student government. You even served on the board as student trustee at that time and worked on the TAN and Cardinal staff. Becky's a partner at Bricker and Eckler, where we both practiced law for some time. She's still there in the public finance group and chair of the public sector group. Becky has been a member of Otterbein's board of trustees since 2010, and we're very fortunate to have her on the board with a lot of expertise relevant to higher education. So what do you see as the value of a private education and an Otterbein education?
Well, like Mark, I've got a funny personal story to tell. As I was preparing to come over this morning and had everything out on the kitchen table, I happened to look at the newspaper. And I don't know if any of you have looked at the Columbus Dispatch today, but the Life and Arts section has a whole section on campus visits and the questions to ask as you go through that process. And it's kind of generic. But the thing that I loved was at the end of the article, it posed the rhetorical question, what do you want out of your college experience and where will you thrive? And all of the things on the checklist are the things that liberal arts schools do so well, and Otterbein in particular. Critical thinking skills, the ability to look at information, whether it's in the sciences, mathematics, in language arts, and be able to work through that and discern themes and really understand not only viewpoints that agree with your own, but those that may differ. The second thing then is, as you looked at all this information, to be able to communicate. My oldest is in grad school right now, and he said, Mom, and he went to liberal arts school, not Otterbein. They didn't have lacrosse so at that time. But he said, Mom, I am so glad I had so much writing to do when I was in undergrad. It just is making grad school so much easier. So that ability, whether it's in written form or in oral form, and I'm going to pick on Margaret, she in her other hat is one of our clients. And I have been to the Board of Trustees meeting of the Worthington Public Library and had to explain to a lay group how you put a levy on the ballot and what are the steps, and be able to sort of think on your feet when you get questions from folks who are in another world. They're not in that world. And so to be able to communicate, whether it's in writing or orally, I think is such a strong skill. And at Otterbein, that is an integral part of what the students are learning. Sort of the next piece that came through in this article loud and clear is to be able to connect the critical thinking skills with the communication skills on real world problems. And in my senior year at Otterbein, I did an internship. I think many people in the room had those kinds of opportunities, whether it was via an internship, whether it was on a group project, variety of ways that you were able to connect what you were learning, what you were, those critical thinking skills and what you were writing and talking about to something that was real world. And that has only been enhanced by the 5 cards and the other kinds of emphasis, I think, on that network and that bridge to the world beyond college. The final thing is, for me, the value of a liberal arts education is that sense of community. And again, there's the 5 cards now and some things that we didn't have when we were in school. But there was always a sense of community. And I remember, like I'm sure you guys do, when Cochran Hall burned down. And there was a sense of community here. And there was a girl in EKT who lost, she was from the South, and she lost all her clothing and everything in that fire. So there was an outreach and a sense of community that I'm just not sure you have, where it's so complex, you can be anonymous. And for some people, that's a little bit, of a two-edged sword. You're gonna get called out. You can't be anonymous here. But that's a good thing, because as you go on in terms of the business case and the value proposition and so forth, what you are really doing is setting the stage for a life, not for an entry-level job. And a lot of the information that we get on the board and through our committee work is oriented to taking the longer view. It's not just the entry-level job. Did you get a job? It's, do you have the skills to not only get an entry-level job? Mark, what was your first job out of school?
KPMG, public accounting. Yeah.
So he's a numbers guy. But I don't know that Mark maybe would have had the career opportunities to be the CFO of Nationwide without the soft skills that accompany the numbers, the critical thinking skills, the ability to communicate to your board, to apply what you're learning to a real world situation, and to have that sense of community, whether it's in the business culture of your place of work or in your other relationships through church or through community groups. For me personally, I can't imagine doing what I do now without that kind of underpinning. And I think I see a lot of heads nodding. I think that's really true for a lot of us in the room. It really, the Otterbein experience teed the ball up for a lifetime, both professional and personal.
Becky, that's a wonderful perspective. Does that prompt any questions or comments from others in the room? I think you captured a lot of what makes Otterbein such a special community and such a special place. Chris Kaiser. Chris graduated from Otterbein in 1977, a member of Tau Pi Phi and Eta Phi Mu, or Jonda. Back in the day, you were a member of the mortar board and on the civil staff. Today, Chris is the Chief Operating Officer for OSU Surgery. It's a multi-specialty surgical practice that provides business and management services to more than 100 doctors affiliated with The Ohio State University. Chris has served on the Otterbein Alumni Council, and you've been a member of the Otterbein Board of Trustees since 2009. Great. What do you think the value of a liberal arts or blended education is?
Well, thanks very much, Ken, for that introduction. And, I must say, I have to tie into the title you gave me, Chief Operating Officer for the Department of Surgery with about 100 docs, all with an undergraduate degree from Otterbein. Isn't that amazing? A surgery group, a non-surgeon being the Chief Operating Officer. I think that's very powerful. Well, I believe, as I'm sure everyone in the room does, otherwise you probably wouldn't be here, that a broad-based liberal arts education really prepares us for whatever vocation or profession that we want to go into. We really do need that foundation, and it provides us, I think, as we've heard some other panelists say, the ability to learn how to learn. So with the soft skills that we've all talked about, the oral communication, who can forget Dr. Grissinger's class, speech. I was the accounting major, had to go to the speech class, but it was a very good thing for me to do. The history class, Dr. Hancock, people would love to take Dr. Hancock's class regardless of what they were majoring in. So that provided myself with a great foundation there that served me well. So I think that's the story we need to continue to tell to anyone that's considering liberal arts education or in particular Otterbein education. But the foundation that you get, I think, as we've heard some other people say, is really the communication skills and the team building skills. Today, the knowledge is out there. I can recall a time when we had to go to the library to look something up. And as my kids were getting into high school and the internet was available and they would get the information they needed like that, I remember saying, well, I wouldn't have even been able to get on my bike yet and get to the library to get that resource. So the knowledge is out there for all of us. We can all access that knowledge. It's how we communicate that knowledge and how we use our critical thinking skills to really build that team and to I guess accomplish what we want to get accomplished. So Otterbein's changed a lot, I believe, since when I came here and 2 generations before that, Kent, as you talked about the generation legacy that you have. I think it's always been open to diversity, different opinions, and always been very welcoming. But what I see on campus now versus what I experienced is I am so encouraged, and I love the leadership that I see in the students being on the Alumni Council and the board. I've interacted with a lot of these students. These are such quality kids. And so what I see is the leadership skills that Otterbein is teaching. Yes, we had that a generation ago, but I think that's even more emphasized today in the 5 cards. So for those of you who don't know, the 5 cards, I've got to look at my notes, but there's a research experience, professional experience, intercultural, leadership, and community engagement. And when we put this together as the common Otterbein experience, I think that's really grown our student population to succeed. Our students here have a tremendous amount of service hours, isn't that right, Bob? We've won awards for that, and I think our students come here because they're more concerned about, doing good for others than doing good for themselves. So, they get that experience, they get to exemplify that in the clubs and different community engagements that they have. And I just think that's a great life skill that we should really tout out there. I think you talked a little bit about this, Becky. When I came to school here versus going to a large institution, I think you get a lot more ability to belong. We all want to be able to belong, whether it's in our work life, our student life, our social life. But at Otterbein, and really liberal arts in general, I believe, there's a lot more opportunities to belong. There's smaller institutions. You don't need to worry about making this elite club or this elite sports team, the opportunities are there for you to participate in that. And I think that will build, the personal confidence of the individual and allow them to succeed more in life. The technical skills change rapidly. In my profession, where I see the doctors, sometimes what they're learning today will change the way they're treating things in 10 years. So they've got to retrain. So the technical skills will always evolve. We'll have many jobs in life, but I think having these, again, broad-based liberal arts education will really serve us well. Another thought, I just want to talk about this a little bit, and that's, the value system really that we need as a society. Whether it comes from formal religion or church, whether it comes from society, whether it comes from family, we all need that. And I think you have a tremendous value system in a liberal arts education. Most liberal arts schools came from religious institutions, right, that formed these institutions. And they were probably more closed than they were today, but they're very open today. But yet they still have a common value system that has pulled from the diverse population that they've attracted. And I think that's very important to society. So I just view that as a very important consideration also to a liberal arts education. If there's any comments or questions on that, or in general.
All I can say is I have great respect for anyone who can manage a group of 100 doctors. Doctors are great people, but of course, I thank you for your answer. I think that's a great perspective. I'm honored now to introduce the Reverend Larry Brown. Larry's a 1980 grad. I was his resident assistant when he came in as a freshman, and I remember helping introduce Larry to Otterbein and maybe some other things. He also joined Sigma Delta Phi, or Sphinx, and we're both members of the choir, Opus Zero, marching band, and of course the Razzmatazz band, the best party on earth. That still continues, I believe. But Larry went on to divinity school and is now the senior minister at Powell United Methodist Church. Larry, how do you see Otterbein as a college of opportunity?
It's a great question. I'm going to answer in just a minute. I want to make a note first that not only was Kent my resident assistant when I began, but just a couple years into my Otterbein experience, Bob Gaddy became one of my deans. And he is still here. And next year will mark my 40th anniversary from my freshman year. So you can figure out all that out. But,
So you're saying Bob's an old guy?
well, he's just been around here a long time.
Wow.
And it's been one of the great privileges I've had to get reconnected to him and refire a friendship with him, so it's been great. And with Kent and the other board members as well. As I'm thinking about the question I want to reflect on and listening to this esteemed panel, they've really already answered it, so I'd rather just practice one of my sermons if I could. No, I won't.
Does that mean I don't have to show up
Yeah,
Sunday morning?
Mark's a member of my church, so he knows we don't want to do that. Well,
He does them without notes, I must say.
Seriously, you've heard about the opportunity that's woven into an Otterbein experience already. I just wanted to think about it from a little different angle. I'm sure you're aware, but if you're not, let me just affirm that opportunity is central to who we are, who Otterbein University is as an institution, intentionally. Back in the historical documents and in the history of this institution, you find there the affirmation of inclusion, diversity, a commitment to minority populations. Otterbein was one of the first institutions to champion women's rights and make a way for women to be educated and to be in leadership. That's also true in minority populations as well. Otterbein's never been a follower in those kinds of things, but always a leader. And you can see that historically. Part of that connects to our history with the church, but I think the other part of that, as we've kind of heard echoed up here, is a part of that liberal arts experience. So it's just key to us to provide opportunity. Opportunity is almost not a heavy enough word to describe who and what we are. We're a place of inclusion and a place that affirms diversity in all kinds of different ways. And I also want to think about that with you in relationship not just to the community of people, but the person himself or herself. Otterbein includes all of that person, the wholeness of who that person is, in what we do and what we offer to them and what they're able to explore, discover, and celebrate about who they are as a person. And we've heard the 5 cards mentioned. I had them written down in case nobody was going to speak to them, but Chris hit it already. But if you look at those, this is all on the website if you want to learn more about them. It creates the framework for this holistic embrace of a person. And the other thing about that makes that happen is just who we are as a smaller private school. You'll be here and you'll know your professor and you'll know your faculty member and you'll know the president and you'll know those who are part of the faculty and staff. Bob Gaddy, I knew him when I was here, not just as some administrator on high, but he was with us and on the floors with us and in the rooms with us, and he and other of the...
And that was a good thing.
It was mostly a good thing. Yeah, he was just starting, so he's much better at it now than he might have been. But the relationship that creates, this is such an obvious point, but it's so key to who we are, and I know that you experienced that. Just thinking about my experience all those years ago, Kent mentioned I was in music. That was my major, so I had the opportunity to sing and dance. I can't dance, never could even then, but I had the opportunity to try, sing and dance and play, be in all kinds of small ensembles, travel, have experiences I would never have been able to have if I had gone to a larger institution because of the competition at places like that. So I know that's not just true for those of us in music, it was true for all of us, no matter what our focus was. And that's still very much true. Added to that, available in the opportunity for students now to be a part of internships, partnerships, community engagement, as we mentioned, and connecting with the world. And it just sets the course for our graduates to find their way in a very a kind of lifestyle and life experience that's meaningful, rich, and deep. So the question I'm supposed to respond to is just so obvious. I'll stop talking now. I am starting to sound like a preacher, so I will stop. But there's a lot of passion up here, and I think in this room, and certainly across this campus for the way that we affirm all people and every part of every person. So I wanted to...
Larry comes by this honestly. He's a minister's son. I think David Fisher's a minister's son. I'm a minister's son. And Larry's remarks about Otterbein as a college of opportunity bring up for me one of the things Otterbein does the very best, and other private institutions as well. We excel in helping first-generation students who are the first member of their family to get a college education. What that requires is engagement, which equates to retention, which equates to success. And we do that far better than public universities. And this is key. I remember in our political theory classes, Becky, the Jeffersonian ideal of an aristocracy of merit. That stayed with me to this day, because you can't accomplish that unless you allow for and support social mobility, where people with talent have the opportunity to grow and blossom and rise and contribute to our society. It's a form of evolution that is necessary if we're going to be competitive, productive, and be the best society and country that we can be. So this is what Otterbein excels at, and we truly are a college of opportunity in that respect. Becky, I think you were about to say
Well, I was
something.
going to ask Jefferson, Larry and I both serve on the enrollment committee, and Jefferson and his staff do a very good job of keeping us apprised of how we are doing with various populations, not just women, not just men, and so forth. Could you speak to first generation?
So when you look at the makeup of the undergraduate student population at Otterbein University, what's very interesting, and I think it again, it talks about how students engage and retain and persist. Between 22 and 25% of our freshmen come in as first generation students. When you look at the institution as a whole, about 22 to 25% of the undergraduates are first generation. So we're not losing them along the way. It's an environment that really is able to support them and help them with their struggles. We also have a very high percentage, almost 30% of our undergraduates are Pell eligible, meaning that they come from low income families and require, are eligible for federal assistance in terms of support for their higher education. And those are families typically with incomes of $45,000 or less. So we do a very good job of supporting those families as well. And I think this is a good environment for students who come in and are really, what I see in some of our students, especially as they enter, is they're not necessarily really sure college is for them, but they want to find out. And this is a really safe place for them to find that out. And it's really interesting because when they graduate as seniors, you don't see that. You see their engagement and their excitement, and they know who they are and what they want to do. We talk a lot about, in terms of that college of opportunity, Otterbein University takes a student where they are and really gets them to where they want to be when they leave. And that's the dream of what higher education is supposed to be about. And some schools do a really good job of taking kids that are already up here and keeping them there. But to be able to work with students that haven't had all those opportunities and get them to a place that when they leave, they can go shape their life to be what they want it to be is an amazing thing.
And I commend Jefferson and his staff because they do provide us with a lot. He has the statistics at the ready, but they provide us with lots of information and also apprise us, I think, of opportunities that are out there now that are new and different. Not everybody comes to college as an 18-year-old white from an upper income family. That's just not reality. And so I think the college has been very forward thinking in terms of embracing things like the College Credit Plus, like articulation agreements with Columbus State. Other ways to provide that, the trite term these days is pathway. Everything's a pathway. But truly to enable someone who might not be our sort of mental stereotype of a college freshman to be successful.
What Jefferson said reminded me of a comment of Kenyon's president, Sean Decatur. He compared the private liberal arts education process, he's a chemist, to a catalytic converter, where we take the raw materials and we expose them to rigor and experience, and they emerge transformed. I thought it was a really neat analogy.
Ken, if I could just add one thing I had written down in my notes, I want to make sure I shared. All the statistics and all of those, all the data is important and drives appropriately a lot of what we are about. But on the website, I came across a video that has faculty, staff, alumni, and students sharing their experience, their perspective of what makes this place special to them. And one of the students, a young woman, said this, that it's a place that allows individuals to craft themselves into wonderful human beings. So that's what I hear you saying. I mean, there's this standard of what's a success, but it's that internal sense that I'm becoming who I'm created to be, and Otterbein is a part of that process. So.
Larry, you're good. Do you have extra room in your sanctuary?
There are extra, yeah, there are empty seats every week.
Are there growing more empty seats?
What's the trend?
Where's the trend line, Larry?
I'll talk to you.
Yeah, data's not important. It's more,
It's the how you feel about yourself.
yeah, very good. David, thank you for contributing. I'm going to ask you a question now. David Fisher graduated from Otterbein in 1975. Your brother John was a 71 graduate, and he's remembered by a family endowment here. You were a member of Pi Beta Sigma, or Pi Sig, when you were here, and founding principal of Kephart Fisher LLC. And I know from direct experience that David is an outstanding attorney, respected throughout Central Ohio and beyond. You've got a national practice and is quite a deal maker. I say that as a compliment. I really do. Although I'm an attorney trying to quit, not easy. David joined the board of Otterbein in 2013, and we're fortunate to have him on board. My question for you, David, is how can we position Otterbein to be sustainable and successful, and what do you see as some of our biggest challenges?
Thanks, Kent. I feel like we're in a baseball game, and it's the 10th inning, and we already won in the 9th, with all the great comments that you've heard from the board members that came before me. I commend them for their comments. I couldn't agree with them more. I think what, in large part, has needed to be said has already been said. But I do have a few additional comments I'd like to add to the discussion today. But before I do, I have to tell you, there's a guy sitting 2 people from me in a red shirt that to me stands for everything Otterbein stands for. His name's Kim Wells. He graduated with me in 1975. I've not seen him since 1975, but when I walked in the room, he reacquainted himself with me before I reacquainted myself with him. But I want you to realize this morning, Kim literally flew all the way around the world to be with us today. Kim shared with me this morning that he has a daughter in graduate studies in London that he went over to see 2 weeks ago. And then they together flew to Bangkok, Thailand to spend some time together. And he just arrived in Columbus from Bangkok. And this time together and his commitment to Otterbein as an alum was so important that his wife and son drove up from Coshocton to stay with him in a hotel in Columbus last night so he could be with us here today. So to me, Kim's and when I think of the question that's been posed to me, the key word that comes to mind for me is one of relevance. And I think Otterbein has stood the test of time, demonstrating its relevance in its past, today, and into its future. And let me give you a couple examples that demonstrate that. Kent mentioned I did have a brother that passed away right after he graduated from Otterbein, and I happened to be a freshman. It was over my Christmas break. I'll never forget that the entire Otterbein community reached out to my family, came to Dayton, Ohio to my brother's funeral. The dean, back then Dean Van, came with a whole entourage from Otterbein. And I'll never forget the impression that made on me about how people mattered at Otterbein, how relevant we must be as a family, how relevant my brother must have been, how relevant I was going to be going forward in my studies and time at Otterbein. And so it touched me in a very big way. Then moving forward through relevance, and as I progressed through my life and my career, I've realized the relevance of my education at Otterbein. For a lot of the reasons you've heard people on the panel discuss today about the liberal arts experience, the ability to critically think and to analyze and to communicate and to be a part of the world, to be a contributing part of society. I see it every day in my work with people that come before me looking for jobs. I see the importance of that liberal arts experience. And then I think of the relevance of the administration of Otterbein. Let me tell you, I'm the youngest member, not by age, but by tenure on the Board of Trustees. But when I sit in these Board of Trustees meetings and I hear President Crandall and her staff and I see the things they're doing, they demonstrate to me how much they recognize the importance that Otterbein stay relevant in its mission going forward to educate our children and the children of the next generation. And that's very important to me. I mean, these people, you've seen it today with some of the comments from administrative folks, these people are on their game. We're competing at the highest level and we're succeeding. I don't think there's too many schools that can say that in this world. And then lastly is the relevance as it relates to all of us. I'll admit I'm a slow learner. Not when it comes to the classroom, but when it comes to my commitment and my contributions to Otterbein and the importance of what I do as it relates to Otterbein. And I would challenge all of you in that same way, that I think we all knew we had a great experience and great opportunities came our way as a consequence of the Otterbein experience, and it provided relevance to our life. And I think we're all at a different place in our life, be it socially, economically, career-wise, but all of us can do something for Otterbein. And all of us should continue to do something for Otterbein because it is our past, but it's also our future as society. And I think Otterbein offers really something great, and we should celebrate it as members of the Otterbein community and help Otterbein progress into the years ahead.
Wonderful. Any questions or comments for David? It is a challenging time, and yet Otterbein is really standing out and doing some exceptional things. I expect you're familiar with a new degree program in zoo science, where just in the past couple years, Otterbein identified an opportunity and within a short period of time has the leading zoo science program in North America with more students than we can accommodate. And it's wonderful. It's like we've got a number of banner programs that really hit the sweet spot, and we're continuing to do that. We're moving toward a program, you're familiar with STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We're becoming a part of a STEAM movement where we insert arts in that. And when I quoted Apple earlier, that's the magic, is when you integrate the arts and humanities in the quantitative fields, right? That's where it's at, and that's what we do so well. So that's not just in Apple's DNA, that's in Otterbein's DNA. And when you look at what students and employers want going forward, it's not really what the public institutions do well. They're now trying to do what Otterbein and other private liberal arts colleges have done well for us over 150 years, which is to engage and to teach, and it's about a relationship. It's not about research and writing scholarly articles, it's about the classroom. It's about the relationships between students and faculty, where we engage and where we support and where we provide that learning experience. So I think I would see our biggest challenge is to tell that story. When the story's out there, it works. It's true. So I see that as our largest challenge, and I'd ask other members of the panel, others in the room, what do you see as the largest challenges for us as we take on the mantle of leadership? We are the generation, and it's our time. And I know we are up for it. So what do you see as the other challenges we need to step up to?
Okay, let me jump in for a moment. And first of all, let me, on behalf of the board, thank you for hosting this discussion. Also for chairing the campaign, which is underway. And this is not a campaign pitch, but I do think if you take a look at this document that's on your desk, it talks about the challenge we have. I mean, most of the times when colleges and universities go raise money, it's to put a building up, right? And we've done that some in the past, and we've fixed buildings like this. Not saying that none of the dollars associated with this effort need to spruce up a few things and, maybe put a little paint on the campus center and a few things like that around here. But if you look where most of the dollars are going, they're going toward what this group has all talked about. It's access and affordability, it's scholarships, it's improving the endowment, it's improving the ability for our faculty to do research, which they need to do still in order to teach better, right? And it's not just a
Right.
research facility. So I think this is a good indication that we took a lot of time to figure out what this campaign should be about, and I think it's about facing the biggest challenges we have and positioning Otterbein to be there for a long, long time, as David said.
We've intentionally made the campaign about and included in the description of the campaign putting students first. And it really is about not just taking them where they are, but then providing a custom experience for them, which we're ideally suited to do. Are there other questions and comments before we wrap things up?
A question.
Yes.
How do you see the university's place in being a liaison, if you will, between the student's experience here at the university and then the workplace?
Well, I think the experiential learning effort, which there was when we were in school, has been vastly expanded. And so one of the things that's one of the fun parts about all the meetings that we have is we do get to hear from students who are applying the work that they're doing in the classroom to real-world experiences. And the other evening, there's a dinner that the Ohio Foundation of Independent Colleges has every year. There was an Otterbein student that was talking about her work at the Wilds. I don't know if you're familiar with the Wilds, and the rhinoceros population there, and tracking their DNA, all with an end toward conservation and so forth. And this student is headed to grad school, but I was very impressed with the linkage between not only what she was learning in the classroom here at Otterbein, but also the relationships that she was developing at the Wilds and in the zoological network. So that's a windy answer, but it was, firsthand, and fairly regularly we get to hear from students that have been doing field work on having these kinds of experiences that aren't just about getting a grade in the class, but exposing them to networks of folks that I think will provide, I'm going to use that word, pathway to their profession.
I think that the only thing I'd add is I think I give a lot of credit to Kathy and other members of her staff that have really connected to the Columbus business community. The quiet, peaceful village thing. Yeah, we were up here and we were in Westerville, and actually to reach out to find the businesses and other opportunities has really been a focus. I think the new leader of the MBA program is re-engaging the business community like they weren't before. Those are the connections people need. Again, if the outcome is a career, which we think we're delivering really good students, there's people all over Columbus looking to hire folks, but we just need to make a connection with them.
Cheryl, I want to answer your question a different way. We can't ever do good enough at that. We as an institution can't ever do good enough at that task, because that, in today's society, that has to be a principal task of Otterbein University. So I think we're doing really well, but we can't ever do well enough, and I think that's a good challenge.
Yeah, that was lacking for me, and whether that was a personal thing because I was a shy kid, I had a lot of opportunities. I was in the ROTC class that first allowed women in. Scared of boot camp, so I didn't proceed with that. And I was on World Campus Afloat too, which was affiliated with it at the time. So I had a lot of opportunity, but once school was over, I was kind of at a dead end there. And whether that was my not knowing the questions to ask or the people to see or how to proceed, I think that I have seen great strides from Otterbein. I went back to continuing education classes in '83, in 93. I audited a class in 93 that I had taken in 83 because I didn't want to jump in again. And same professor, but the teaching was totally different, a lot more real-world type of situations, ethics questions and things like that in accounting, which you didn't have. It was all book learning back then. So I think that's a big step towards progress.
Good to hear.
Thank you. I'd welcome members of Otterbein staff to address that point too. As to what we're doing to help. Kathy, would you like
I
to?
was told to sit in the back row.
I didn't tell you that.
No, I try to follow orders, but I think one of the points that, directly to your question, Mark's right, we really have tried to build relationships with more companies, corporations. In fact, the institutions of higher education, there are more partnerships now. But one of the examples, the most recent examples, I think, is actually support we've had from Nationwide in terms of doing non-credit professional development activities. So coding boot camp and a predictive modeling, predictive analytics kind of program. They're discrete, they're non-credit, but they're for people who need to increase their skills or stay current in terms of industry demand. So not only are we working with a number of companies, so we're working directly with Westerville and with companies in the area and with companies in Columbus to try to find those kinds of pathways that Becky was talking about, to make sure that our curriculum is aligned with the needs of the workplace, but also looking at more flexible, more, I guess I would say, responsive kinds of programs that might not be a degree, they might not be a full-blown program, but they give people advancement in terms of skills that are current and that will lead them to a better career opportunity for them. So that, I think I was in a meeting in Washington on Wednesday with the other Ohio presidents, and someone said the word alliances is what this is all about, and it's alliances both within the higher education community, but also alliances within the community to build those relationships with employers. So that's, I will close with a pitch, and that is that's something that you could all help us with, is building those relationships. So Mark has been great in terms of opening doors with Nationwide, and that's led to some new directions for us, and a lot of new opportunities for our faculty to engage and to create opportunities for our students. But those ideas, Matt Toledo, we can talk about, you know. So keep those doors open for us. You can be our advocates out there. So it's a great point, and we are focusing on it, but it's not all public yet.
So I think you can see, I think it's obvious, why this is such an important time for all of us as a new generation of leaders to stand with Otterbein. It's very important for you to get involved or stay involved with the campus. So we are asking you to fill out a survey that we've provided that let us know if you enjoyed our panel and our discussion and are interested in learning more, or if you have an interest in helping us with our first ever $50 million comprehensive campaign. I want to sincerely thank all of you for joining us and for contributing, in particular our panel members. These were tremendous discussions and contributions, and I thank you all.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.